Hi everyone, nice to see you. Today we have the Wonder Talk, and I have a special guest, Leo Pruimboom. Hi Leo,
Hi,
nice to see you.
how are you and
Yeah,
everybody?
I'm good. And if you want to, if you have some questions, leave it in the live stream. We can see the live chat, so don't hesitate to ask anything. So, Mr. Leo. How do you experience this time, this COVID situation? How is it for you personal, your experience, and yeah, what is your perception on it?
Now it's now already some month, obviously. For me, the the difference is huge because of the fact I always traveled 250 days every year, and now I can't travel. I work online, and so I sleep at home every night, which is an incredible advantage for me. So I can't complain because of the fact that I still work. I I sleep at home. I see my family, and so that makes life for me much easier.
Yeah, and regarding your job, what do you do?
I'm a clinical psychoneuroimmunologist. I'm the founder of that science since 33 years. And so what I do is we teach this science worldwide. And we have students from really all over the world. We teach in 5 languages, and that are all professional health care people, reaching from physiotherapists to medical doctors to specialists to psychologists, etc., etc.
Yeah, and so are you also doing any research or anything around the COVID?
Yeah, we have been researching several lines, and one of those lines is trying to find the intermediate host because that's a very important step to find a real good vaccine. We have progressed quite a bit, and probably this week our paper will be published as a preview. We also are looking for other so-called virus receptors in the human host, and that is also a thing we have. Anyway, we have a very good clue, and so that is a lot of work. It is a lot of reading a lot of publications, and we work together with a university in Brazil, where we have developed a line to use a medicine, a natural medicine, and see if that substance is capable of inhibiting the replication of the virus, and the actual preliminary data are very do really promise.
And do you have any general advice for the people what they should do or what would be healthy for them to do in this quarantine situation? Because a lot of countries are in quarantine, some have really a full lockdown.
Yeah, I think I like that question because if you read all the publications about the coronavirus, they are all related with the virus itself, and the host is really the forgotten part of all research. And we can do quite a bit to decrease if you would develop the disease, the severity of symptoms, and we can also do quite a bit to prevent having those symptoms. So, okay, obviously, the symptoms to prevent the best preventable measurements are knees in your elbow, keep the 1.5 meter distance, but then still, there are a lot of people who can be affected because that is not 100% prevention. So, what you can do is increase your resistance, and by just a few easy to follow lifestyle interventions.
And what kind of lifestyle interventions are they? Because you make me very curious.
Yeah, I thought so. I'm going to shut up and see what she's going to ask me.
I'm going with the flow. I'm making up everything along we're going because it's nicer to have a real interaction instead of a preset question.
Of course. We have to improvise.
Exactly.
This period is to improvise. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
And it makes people flexible. And then probably the audience of you is also a quite flexible audience. So if they would do something about their lifestyle, such as, for instance, do every day half an hour of high intensity exercise. That's easy to do. You buy or you rent an app, a workout app. That's one. And very important is don't eat mammalian food. I can't tell you exactly yet why, because that is what we found. So don't eat any pork. Don't really red meat, because there are some sugar molecules therein which could be used by the virus to enter your body. And third, take very much care of your oral hygiene, so that you don't bleed. Have an increased oral hygiene measurements. Use an oral probiotic so that your mouth and your nose are so incredible healthy that the virus cannot find any environment to replicate. And also very important is that you maintain in-house a high level of humidity. So the virus needs drought. It cannot survive very well when the relative humidity of the environment is high. So take care that your house is not too dry, because that's not good. And that is nice and warm. And next to that, you can use some, you call that hormetic triggers, to do something which is called a polyphenomenal intervention. You know that. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So what you could do is, if you use, for instance, a cold shower, a real cold shower, till shivering, then you do not only develop resistance against cold, but you also trigger your immune system against viral infection.
Oh,
the
wow.
same holds, for instance, for once in a while, do a thing which is called intermittent hypoxia. So what you do then, you hyperventilate 30 times, and then you maintain your breath. But even more effective for the immune system is called intermittent hypercapnia. And intermittent hypercapnia means you take plastic bag and you start breathing in the bag for 3 minutes, which could produce a little bit of a panic attack. But that doesn't matter. Then you breathe 5 minutes normal, and you do it again, and then in 1 hour you do a 15-minute hypercapnia session. Hypercapnia means that the CO2 level in your blood goes up, which means that the pH, so that means the level of pH goes down. This is one of the most effective triggers to increase defenses against viruses. So you can do quite a bit, a few things. Sleep well, and don't be afraid to be afraid. It's the opposite. This is a contagious disease, and it is good to suffer a physiological level of fear, because then you maintain the measurements to not have too much physical contact, and that you really reject a little bit. And that's a good thing, because social distancing does not mean social isolation.
Yeah, I think in the beginning of the coronavirus, people really took it as social isolating instead of social distancing.
Yeah.
But about anxiety, do you notice in your environment that people are that anxiety is more high?
It's interesting. That has got also to do, I think, with 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 the type of friends people have. So we are not. I'm not anxiety. I don't suffer anxiety. I don't even know what it is, to be very honest. So now in my network, no, there are not very much really people in panic. Because we have that environment, that are people working with me, friends from the same health, let's say health lines. But there are other people, obviously, who are afraid. But I think that if we are Dutch, that the Dutch people, they are really still Calvinistic. So they are. If you see in the north of Holland, friend of mine there, they say we don't make a big fuss of it. We are not very used to have a lot of body contact. So for us, it's not a big difference. Other countries, I have a lot of friends in Spain. In Spain, it is really horrible. There are people, they can go out now again, and they don't have the energy to go out. So Spain is really devastated. The people are completely fed up, and that has got also to do which is obviously they don't trust the measurements in Spain because they don't trust the government. That is a huge problem, and in countries like in Holland, like in Denmark, like in Sweden, Norway, New Zealand, you see that all the countries where the measurements have been successful are countries where the population have a high level of trust in the government, and you notice that less depression, less anxiety syndromes, less all kind of mental problems, whereas in Spain, in Italy, in countries where people don't trust their government, they suffer much more mental problems.
So they actually became, or do you mean that these people in Spain, because they're now allowed to go out, that they became lethargic from not being able to physically move literally, or to do their sports or anything, that they sort of chemically became like tired from sitting indoors for a month?
Yeah, they because of the fact that, one thing is confinement. The other thing is, if confinement is a voluntary decision or it is obligatory. If you look to the difference, if you look to the reaction, the biochemical reaction to a prohibition or to a voluntary decision to confine yourself, that you cannot even imagine the difference in the brain. If you use the neuroimaging, you see another brain reaction, completely other brain reaction. If it's a voluntary decision, you see that the cognitive part of the brain is dominated, and the cognitive part of the brain is a part of the brain which is obedient. But if you prohibit people something, and we have an innate resistance against being changed, then you see activity of the emotional part of the brain, and that means that it is really rejected. And if the emotional part of the brain is activated through that pathway, then it activates the immune system in a wrong way. Whereas a cognitive voluntary decision to confine yourself is a completely different defense response.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, you see also people are in those type of situations that they physically get sick after a while.
Yeah. And that, but it is not some esoteric thing. This is hard science. Perhaps 20 years ago, when I would have told you this, then they would say you're a charlatan, a quack. But today not. We've done a lot of research ourselves, and the way you inform, if you have employees, and you command them. That is a completely other thing, and has got nothing to do then when you transform somebody. So that's what I like so much from Merkel, from good leaders. They don't command; they transform behavior of people. Now, and in Spain, and that is really a consequence, an inheritance of a fact that they really have never had a democracy till 79, till Franco died. So the country still has an inheritance of choosing paternal politicians, because paternal politicians, they make the decision, they take the decisions for you, because that's what the people are used to, and it's still an inheritance also in the younger people. That's very weird, but it is known. The same happens in Italy. If you see the type of politician people who vote in Italy, that are all men, that is that obvious, but those men are really also paternal. They don't open up decision-making capacity, no. And they say, be responsible, but we take the decisions. And that is in 2020 not human anymore.
Yeah. We have one question from Leon, and she asked you, could you explain more about oral hygiene?
Okay, now oral hygiene means that the thing is that in the mouth we have the most advanced immune system of the whole body. So what is very important is that, for instance, your gums don't bleed. So it means use every day tooth silk, brush your teeth, but don't brush them. Friction the gums with your toothbrush. So friction on the front, on the side, and at least 5 minutes every time you brush them. Then use tooth silk and clean your mouth with olive oil. But the most important thing is, and this time, eat at least 2 apples a day. Chew them very well, because in apples there are a lot of so-called polysaccharides, glycans, and if you nourish your oral cavity with those glycans, then you develop a kind of a defense line against not only this virus, but also against bacteria which can produce periodontal disease. So, and you really should clean up your mouth every day, 2-3 times a day, very intensive. And if it bleeds, that doesn't matter. But gradually the bleeding should stop, because a little bit of blood, only a little bit of blood, already means an open barrier. So you have to close up your barriers.
Yeah. And I had also, you said before about anxiety, that it was okay to be a little bit anxious. Does it also do something to the body if you're just like, you could say, instead of anxiety, maybe being careful or conscious or aware?
Yeah. Okay. This is a definition problem. It's a definition problem.
Okay.
So being careful. Look. If you look at fear, in an evolutionary way, then you see that pathogens are responsible for the development of a few very important emotions. Fear is induced by the so-called behavioral immune system. And so this was a necessary, you call it a necessary emotion to provide survival mechanisms, not only for humans, but for all animals. The apes also suffer fear. It's a very, very old evolutionary emotion. And if you look at it in an evolutionary way, then you see that fear has been developed to prevent contagious diseases to proliferate. And so this type of fear is a physiological fear, and it produces cautiousness. If you are not afraid, you would cross a street, and believe me, if you don't look to the left and to the right, you're killed. So this is very, very physiological fear. So, and physiological fear produces carefulness, and that's perfect. If you translate that in a meta emotion, which is not an evolutionary emotion, but a meta emotion like freeze, that the fear is so big that it produces a phobia, then you go over the edge. That you call that an evolutionary scar. Fear is protective. If it goes over a certain limit, then it becomes deleterious. Solution. Inform yourself with a lot of knowledge. Knowing is the only way to ease off meta emotions. If you know, you control, and if you control, you understand that physiological fear is not at all deleterious. No, it's the other way. It makes you careful. It takes care of you, and that's a good thing. If you go over an edge and you get an anxiety syndrome, then that anxiety syndrome not only affects your mental health, but can also affect your physical health, obvious.
Yeah. And Adia from India is asking about, could you explain something about the farmers? Is there any advantage for them?
That's a very interesting question. That is one of the things we have studied epidemiologically, is what is happening on the countryside and what is happening in big urbans. And there is a huge difference, but we still don't know which of both populations are more or less in danger. Look, for instance, the Spanish fever in 1918 killed much more farmers than people living in urban places. Why? Because those farmers, they had not suffered in generations before the 1918 enough flu viruses. So they had not any protection against those flu virus. So it was a new one. So they were not vaccinated. So much more people died at the countryside than in big urbans. Okay, so that is in 1918. At this moment, it is definitely that more urban people are affected, but it is also logical because they live on a more narrow area. Yeah, so there's more human-to-human contact. So that could be the reason. Because we don't know yet on the countryside what is happening, because there is less contact, so that also means there are less affected people, but we cannot say yet if they are more or less protected. There is I can tell you some data, yeah, and that is that in areas where they used in the 1980s a pesticide, which is called diendril, that substance makes you much more susceptible for the development of severe corona symptoms. That has got to do that pesticide has a half lifetime for more than 20 to 100 years. So it does not disappear from the soil. So my advice is then, if you live as a farmer, if you breathe vegetables, don't eat potatoes, don't eat zucchini, don't eat cucurbitous vegetables, because they are a kind of diendril trap, and that those nutrients could increase the susceptibility for developing the virus symptoms. At the other hand side, for instance, lettuce, tomatoes, sweet potatoes, beans, all those vegetables and legumes, they are not capable of sucking the diendril from the soil, so that is not a single problem.
Oh, wow. But if your food is, you have organic food and non-organic food, that means, in my understanding, that means they use pesticides or not pesticides. So does that mean that it doesn't matter that it has the pesticides on it also?
No, yeah. That's the problem. That the diendril, that's not used anymore. But it is not gone. Yeah. It's in Holland. For instance, in North Brabant, we definitely know in North Brabant that one of the reasons of the susceptibility there is having used these pesticides, and the RIVM in Holland has already done soil research years ago, and there is still a level of diendril 30 years later, wow, which is toxic.
Yeah.
So that's the problem, that the half-time of those pesticides and insecticides is that long, and they travel also by air. So that means that you don't have the faintest idea if the ground where you grow your vegetables are or not are infected with those pesticides.
Wow. There's one more question, but it's a longer sentence, so just take a look closer. Adi just asked, is it good to masticate food or to give the work to the stomach?
That's an interesting question. If you eat vegetables and fruit, masticate them, because then the saccharides, the polysaccharides, the carbohydrates in fruits and vegetables, if you masticate them, then those polysaccharides, those sugar molecules, they are liberated. And because that they are then liberated in the mouth, they become part of your mucus layer in the mouth. So don't make smoothies. Human beings, have you ever seen an ape drinking a smoothie? Ever. So that's also refinement of food. So eat food the way it looks like. But don't think that you should eat everything raw. That is really, with all respect, the whole raw food movement, that is not science, because human beings became human beings because of the fact, and it's the only animal in history on Earth, that human beings have controlled something which is called extrasomatic energy. And extrasomatic energy means we control fire. And the fact that we started heating food made human. And it's a beautiful study that we did years ago with wild apes. It was a really beautiful study. So what we did is we gave wild apes, wild monkeys, we offered them. We had to go away, cooked and non-cooked food, and it made it easy. You know what? All the monkeys, it were orangutans, gorillas, and chimpanzees, all of them. What they preferred was cooked food and not the raw food. So this is a prime thing, yeah, and that's incredibly important, that we don't think that we should eat everything raw, because that is not the way human became human.
So it's easier for the system to digest cooked food?
And not only that, it also means that if you cook food, that you kill pathogens. So that food has never been sterile. And next to that, there are a lot of nutrients. If you would eat raw potatoes, do that 1 month, and then then after that month, it could be that was your last month, because there are toxic substances. So the same holds for beans. There are a lot of nutrients that if you don't heat them, then they contain certain toxins which are really dangerous. Not once, because that doesn't matter, but if you sum those toxins day after day, that is not good for your health. And then you can also see that just go into internet, which is not good for everything, but it's interesting to see, and just look to the people who invented, let's say, modern diets. Modern diets, that means diets which have got nothing to do with evolutionary thinking, which has got nothing to do with Homo sapiens. It's only to do with people who started thinking. I always say, the moment people started thinking, things went wrong. Because what you should do is try to understand the conditions of existence of Homo sapiens. That doesn't mean that we are Paleolithic people, because we aren't. But what we are Homo sapiens. And Homo sapiens, and I already said that one of the most important steps in the development of Homo sapiens, and the only reason, it's really only reason, that there are almost 8 billion people in the world is because we control extra somatic energy. That means we have heating, we have refrigerators, we have fire, and if we wouldn't have had that, then we know algorithmically that not even 100 million people could survive on this earth. So fire, heating is a big step in the development and the survival of humans.
Wow, amazing that the animals then know that they should eat that. That's quite amazing that they have that type of intuition.
Yeah, that you cannot imagine. If you look at chimpanzees, if you know that in Africa, for instance, a lot of modern farmers, they cut the rainforest, then harvest 1 year of corn, then they leave that because that soil is not very fertile. Then they leave that behind, and then the chimpanzees start eating corn, which is completely infected with fungi. And if you see what they do, they eat. They don't notice the fungi, so they really eat the corn. But the interesting thing is that is highly infectious. What they do then at once, they go into the rainforest, search for a herb. That herb is also toxic, but if they eat that herb after having eaten infected corn, they don't get ill.
Wow.
That is really completely spontaneous. I don't think it's spontaneous. I think that the real fact is that we as humans are too arrogant and to think that we are the only intelligent animals on the world. but that's because of a wrong definition of intelligence. For me, intelligence is the capacity of any organism to survive and to replicate. So I hope that you see that the coronavirus is definitely more intelligent than we are, because the coronavirus survives and the coronavirus replicates, and it leaves a bunch of dead people. So I wouldn't be so arrogant, and I'm really not that arrogant, that I think that we are the most intelligent organisms on the world, on Earth. I think that we are not at all that intelligent, and you can see that to the response worldwide to this pandemic situation.
Yeah. I can ask you so many questions, even on this, what you have been sharing with us. I could respond and ask more, but yeah, I want to really thank you so much for your time and your presence. Like you, me, and other people need to go back to their home office, so we have to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Mr. Leo, for taking the time to share your knowledge, your wisdom, your kindness, your heart with us.
Okay, it was a pleasure. Thank you very much. I hope that you enjoyed it and that you have some advantage of this knowledge. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.
So tomorrow, everyone, there's the healing transmission. Friday, there will be the Qigong practice. So see you tomorrow if you're interested again to join me for the healing transmission. So thank you again, Leo. And there's a lot of thank yous from the audience, and they're sharing their happiness. So wish you all a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. I will share with you for a second, like we have from Holland, from Russia, from India, from Belgium. We have from many places people who are watching. So
thank you very much.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.